Upon arriving the next day for work, Trier learned that it was Min's turn to chop wood for the kiln fires. That was why he had not been at home the day before. Like most of the potters' villages, Tulpo had a communal kiln. Set on the hillside just outside the centre of the village, it looked like a long, low tunnel made of hardened clay. The potters took turns using the kiln and keeping up the supply of fuel. Min handed Trier a small axe and led him around the side of the house to a wheeled cart. "Fill the cart with wood," Min barked. "Dry wood, not wet. Do not come back until the cart is full." Trier felt as though the sun had sunk within. The night before, sleep had not come easily. He had imagined himself at the wheel, a beautiful pot growing from the clay before him. Perhaps, he thought now, if he chopped enough wood quickly, there would still be time at the end of the day. He quashed that over his next words. "Take care to go well into the mountains," he said. "Far too many trees have been cut too close to the village. You will walk a long way before you find a plentiful stand of trees." Trier swallowed a sigh as he placed the axe in the cart. Grasping the two handles, he wheeled the cart onto the road. He turned to wave farewell, but the potter was no longer there. The sound of the throwing song floated out from behind the house. Chopping wood for hours without a single bite to eat had been hard enough, but the worst of that day was the long trip back down the mountainside with the cart full of wood. The path was rutted and bumpy. The homemade cart was poorly balanced, awkward with its heavy load. At every step, Trier had to keep his eyes trained on the path and the cart. In spite of his efforts, whenever the wheels hit a deep rut, the cart tipped precariously and some of the logs spilled out. Then he had to stop to pick up the fallen wood. It was more than annoying because he had been careful to lay the wood neatly as he chopped, and each bump led to further disarray of the tidy pile. After this had happened more times than he could count, Trier neared the end of the mountain path. Soon it would widen and smooth out into the more heavily travelled foothills road. Trier lifted his head for a moment in eager anticipation of the end of his journey. Just then, the right-hand wheel caught a stone. The cart handles were wrenched from his hands and the cart tipped onto its side. The momentum pulled Trier off balance and he tripped over the cart and tumbled headfirst to the ground. He sat up, dazed. For a moment, he didn't know whether to curse or cry. He set his lips together tightly and scrambled to his feet, then pulled the cart upright and began flinging the wood back into it in a frenzy. As he heaved a large, rough log, an arrow of pain shot through his right hand. He cried out and clenched it into a fist for a moment until the throbbing eased a little. Then he opened it cautiously and examined the injury. The pillow of fluid that had formed on his palm during the long hours of wielding the axe had burst. Blood ran from the wound, mixing with dirt and small bits of bark. Trier stared at it, and he could not stop the tears that pressed hot behind his eyes. Angrily, he blinked away the tears and set about tearing a strip of cloth from the bottom of his tunic. There was no water nearby, so he spat on his palm and wiped it as best he could, clenching his teeth against the pain. He used his other hand and his teeth to wrap and tie the cloth into a makeshift bandage. From then on, he worked slowly and methodically, stacking the wood in neat rows in the cart. The sun was low in the sky when he finished at last and wheeled the cart cautiously down the path to the foothills road. Trier dragged himself home to the bridge that evening. Greyman's normally placid expression was replaced with a frown of worry when Trier stumbled into the space under the struts and collapsed in a heap on the ground. Greyman said nothing. He merely held out a bowl in which he had placed a small mound of rice and a little pile of boiled greens. Too exhausted to eat, Trier waved the food away. The Greyman hobbled to his side and used his crutch for support as he eased himself down to sit next to Trier. Greyman picked up a little rice in his fingers and insistently, but still without a word, began feeding Trier as if he were a baby. Trier did not remember finishing the meal, but he awoke the next morning to see Greyman swing himself down under the bridge by holding one of the struts, as he always did. Small and slight, and who knew how old, Greyman still moved his upper body with the ease of a young man. Many were the times that Trier forgot completely about the useless leg. Where had Greyman been so early? Trier sat up stiffly and began to rub his eyes. As he brought his right hand up to his face, he caught sight of the crude bandage. It was stiff with dried blood. "Yes, that is what I've been about," said Greyman. "Now, let us see what we can see." Trier held out his hand. Greyman untied the bandage and began to unwrap it. Trier hissed sharply in pain and snatched his hand away. The final layer of cloth clung stubbornly to the wound, and Crane Man had been trying to pull it off. "Come now, my monkey friend," said Crane Man kindly but firmly. "It must be removed so we can clean the wound. The demons of sickness are no doubt already scheming to enter your body through such a door." Trier rose and shuffled to the water's edge. He crouched and dipped his hand in the water. Its coolness soothed the throb, and its wetness loosened the cloth's grip on the wound. Wincing, he eased the bandage away. While Trier cleaned his wound, Crane Man took the strip of cloth and washed it thoroughly with water from the gourd bowl, scrubbing it against a flat stone at the river's edge. Then he wrung it out and handed it to Trier, who scrambled up the bank and hung it on a strut to dry in the sun. From his waist pouch, Crane Man took a handful of green herbs he had gathered in the woods earlier that morning. He ground them to a paste between two stones, then scooped up some of the paste with 2 fingers and applied it to Trier's hand. "Close your hand," Crane Man ordered. "Squeeze so the healing juices may enter the wound." The 2 friends ate the last of the rice treasure for breakfast, Trier holding the paste as he ate with his other hand. Then Crane Man tied the now dry strip of cloth back into a bandage. "There," he said. "A few days' rest will see that hand good as new." He looked at Trier sternly. Trier said nothing. He knew that Crane Man had already guessed there would be no rest that day. There was still 8 days' work to be done